Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Corey, and welcome to Advanced Cellular Health Recovery. If you're suffering from a chronic condition, maybe possibly Lyme disease, Alzheimer's, irritable bowel syndrome, autoimmune disease, the list goes on and on, cancer, all of these conditions have two things in common, and that is that there's toxicity involved and there's infections involved. And it's a perpetuating cycle that goes over. And it might start out as a small thing and it snowballs and it gets a little bit bigger. And year after year, you realize that you started having more and more symptoms. And then the doctors diagnose you with a condition. So with any chronic condition, I think it's important to understand, and you have to really get to the point where you say, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Now, if you're not responding to traditional and alternative care, you have to ask yourself a few questions. And to solve any problem out there, you have to ask yourself, what is the underlying causes of why your cells, your tissues, your organs, and your systems of your body aren't working properly? Now, in my clinic, I take care of a lot of people with Lyme disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, heart disease. We have neurological problems, peripheral neuropathies, chronic infections, irritable bowel problems, autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, and so forth. But what the point is it's not about the conditions. It's about the underlying terrain and the health of the individual cells to tissues, to organs, to systems that really makes the biggest difference. And this is what I've seen over the past 25 years. And what you're going to see is this annual cases of persistent Lyme. And we're going back to 88 to 2018. And as we see, the bar graph just gets higher and higher and higher. So more and more people are getting sick. And I have to ask, is the care really being beneficial for everybody? Well, the graphs say no. When we look at the rates of autism, it's done nothing but increased. We see it 1 in 10,000 back in 70s, and then now we're like at 1 in 54. So when we look at the autism rates, once again, we see that we're continuing to escalate more and more. And we're the most advanced society in the world, and we're the most diagnostic as far as from our medical capabilities. But you have to ask, are we really seeing what we need to see to get people well? Number of Americans, when we go through and we look at Americans with Alzheimer's, for example, this just continues to get higher and higher. More and more people are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. When we look at the cancer rates, once again, the prevalence and projections of the US population for all age groups continues to increase year after year after year. So from 75 to the projections, the end of the graph here, you're going to see it to the 2040 here. We're going to see that things are expected to continue to climb. Now, autoimmune diseases, we're looking at multiple sclerosis, Sjogren's syndrome, Crohn's disease, autism is thought to, in very many circles, to be thought as autoimmune. When we look at Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, 90% of people with thyroid problems are diagnosed as hypothyroid. But in essence, if they had their antibodies checked, they'd actually see that they actually have an autoimmune condition. So it's super, super important for us to just walk through the steps and see really what's going on, because sometimes we look at things just, this is what's happening to me. What's not just happening to you, it's happening to everybody. And we need to kind of jump out of the traditional box here a little bit, and we need to say, okay, how else can we see what's going on in my body? And there are ways, and there's been ways for a long time now that aren't being utilized. So I want to introduce you to those. And so I had to ask myself, well, when does toxicity really begin? And the truth is it really begins before birth. So when I started doing research, and I've been researching this over 10 years, as far as the toxicology work that I do, but it starts before birth. And then we continue to accumulate more and more and more toxins throughout our years. So if you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, and you have chronic conditions, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what is going on here? And so I want to walk you through this, some studies and just some information, but this is a list of all the chemical pollutants detected in the human umbilical cord of a newborn baby. So as you can see, mercury was found in virtually everyone when they tested mercury. So it was found 1-to-1 ratio when we went through to look at that. And we've got we got PCBs in here, we've got the hydrochlorides, we've got all kinds of these toxins are floating around, found in the umbilical cord of newborn babies. Now, after birth now, we in our society, we're taught that we have to do these preventative things. And I think in many, many cases, vaccines are very, very beneficial for people. But when we look at how our industries and how from a society we're being led, I don't believe that pharmaceuticals are the end all be all of curing disease in our lifetime if we're going to make an attempt to do so. So when we look at vaccination rates in the 60s, when I was born, we had approximately 5. And within that 5, we went to 1983, we go up to about 24. Now, this is a study with Oregon, so it just shows Oregon alone in 2019. But you'll see that we go up to 72 vaccinations in 2019 that says CDC is recommending for our population of children. So is it doing more harm than good? And I just proposed that question to you. I'm not going to give you any recommendations or anything, but I have my thoughts, and I want you to do research and make sure that you have yours as well. Glyphosate, okay, it's Roundup weed killer. It's on crops, soy, it's on corn, it's on our wheats. But what I want you to see on this graph is that these are deaths according to intestinal infection. So when we look at intestinal infection and we look at the graph of how many people died from intestinal infection, and then we overlap that with Roundup, which is the glyphosate, we see that there's almost a parallel of when that was introduced to our society and how the disease process has affected so many people, actually causing death from intestinal infections. This is super, super important for you to understand. And we have 7 key bullets causing chronic conditions and chronic disease today. We've got infectious agents, we've got ruinous lifestyle, we've got malfunctions within organ systems, we've got trauma, we've got toxicity and chemicals. So when we look at these root causes of disease, let's take a peek a little closer. We've got the toxicological agents like the heavy metals and agricultural chemicals, xenobiotics, solvents, cleaning agents, household products. These are bioaccumulative in your tissues and your nervous system. Super, super important for you to understand that when we take these things in, very, very often they don't all leave our body through our methylation and our detoxification pathways. Next is infectious agents. This is what I'm talking about with parasites, yeast, mold, and bacteria. Parasites are found much more common than people believe. Same thing, as you know, with the virus epidemic going on right now. We're exposed to things over and over and over. And as we know, the immune system has to take over. It's got to be able to deal with these virus, bacteria, parasites, yeast, mold, fungus. So our body has to take care of these through our own detoxification and methylation pathways and our digestive tract and how our immune system is activated with our T and B cells and our lymphocytes, and the neural network and the immune system always is continually talking to each other, to the digestive system, to the cardiovascular system, to the immune system. So all these systems have to work together. And EMFs, believe it or not, if you've looked at the research, it's overwhelming how these can cause physiological effects. So that cell phone that you're putting up to your ear, or the Wi-Fi that's radiating throughout your business or throughout your house, it can be remediated and is implicated with chronic conditions. And as we go to 5G, it's going to get worse and worse. Believe me, the research is out there. And I'm going to do a future video on that, in addition to many, many other subjects of interest. So look at those cell towers. They're putting up more and more. And once we go to 5G, like I said, we're going to see a exploding of chronic conditions, medically induced antibiotic residues, supplement residues from supplements, cheap ingredients are cheap ingredients. Things that are not conduit to our body's physiology is going to be very, very important, because these things are going to cause a stress response to your body when you take these in. So yes, antibiotic residues, I do find those. I find pharmaceutical residues in my clients. We find that we get exposure from the remnants of from the X-ray radiation that we have, MRIs, CAT scans. All of these can leave remnants and decrease the functions of your cells to tissues, to the organs and systems of your body. ruinous lifestyle. We all know about this, but the most profound one that's going to make the biggest difference in your life is getting away from that standard American diet that the government actually recommended for you. It's go way back 40 years ago, and then it was revised again, and it's getting better and better. They started actually looking at some of the science, but what I want you to understand is that God put food on this earth is called fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, comes from meat, vegetables, and fruit. And what I'd like you to do is just stick to that primitive diet, and believe me, you're going to see your health turn around as well. It's very, very important. We look at our natural foods and not the artificial man-made foods out there, because the man-made foods are going to kill you. Organs and systems of physical traumas, inherited and acquired conditions. So these are organ weaknesses. You know, we can have genetic predispositions, but we don't have to have genetic expression. So your genetics are not going to tell you everything. When you go through and you run 23andMe or you have genetic testing done, it doesn't tell you everything. Toxicity is going to take precedence over the genetics, whether or not those genes are actually being expressed. And we have conscious emotional issues. Stress can have a profound effect on all of us. And we're seeing that with the rates of depression in our society right now, with the epidemic, pandemic, endemic, hopefully now. And as we go through, you're going to see that all of these things play a part. So these are the 7 key root causes of all disease, all illness. We take care of these and we remediate them, we expel them from our bodies, we can live a healthier existence, we can have a healthier society and whole. So the key bullets of chronic disease are your dietary proteins, which you're taking in your body. You look down, iodine can actually cause havoc if you're taking in excess through eating too much tunas. The lectins, if you have food sensitivities, there's reasons why. These are in the majority of cases, I'd say probably 70 to 80% of the time, it's because of toxins. It's because of infections that are underlying, causing havoc on your immune system and on your digestive tract. We also have lifestyle issues, and I briefly went over that in the last slide. We have chemical issues as far as all of those chemicals we just reviewed. And then we have pathogens, bacteria, virus, parasites, and that kind of thing. So I want you to be aware of these things. And what I like you to understand is no one of these things actually works by itself. They all work in concert with each other. For example, the 3 deadly pernicious agents and how they work together. When we look at yeast and molds and Lyme disease, for example, mercury is going to be a sponge for that. So anybody who's got mercury fillings in their mouth, or they're eating a lot of tuna, they have mercury in their system. You can get it from a lot of other places too. But when you have that, mercury is actually like a big sponge for those yeasts and for Lyme disease. So they're going to bind to that. Electromagnetic fields, you think about heavy metals, mercury, right? And then you have those EMFs, electromagnetic fields. Just like two magnets that come together, they're going to be pulled together. So we have a self-perpetuating cycle of infections caused by the yeast, and then we have mercury binding to them, and then we have EMFs, which cause havoc, and it's just a self-perpetuating cycle. So unless you can get rid of the mercury in your system, you get rid of heavy metals in your system, you're not going to ever resolve any Lyme disease and a lot of these chronic conditions. Sources of mercury exposure. Let's go over that one. We got vaccine residues. We had batteries. We got dental amalgams, as I mentioned. We also have tuna. A lot of the deep sea fish have high quantities of mercury in them. Medications, supplements. These excipients are very, very important, and this comes in cheap supplements. So when you go to some of these bigger outlets and so forth, you're going to get cheaper supplements. It's a better price, and there's a reason why you're paying a lower fee for those, because they have these excipients and these binders in them. They can actually cause havoc in your digestive tract and the way that your body will go through its metabolic phases. Cosmetics are very, very important when you look at mercury. Auto parts, asbestos is another toxin. So all of these are very, very important. But the $6 million question that we have to ask is, how do we test for these stress organs in the presence of these pernicious agents to get them out of our system? And what we provide through Advanced Cellular Health Recovery is a scientific method that offers health solutions that uniquely integrates three different philosophies and approaches. First, a paradigm of living systems, meaning looking at the perspective and the priority and the natural order. no different than we have an ecosystem up there, a galaxy, and our environment, the ecosystem of the world. We have an internal and external environment, and that's how things have to work together. And this is a natural order that we've all been living in from the day that we were born. Power of information fields. The technique and the theories that I utilize in my work have to do primarily, and the foundation from all sciences is physics. So physics regulates all and encompasses all sciences: anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, chemistry. When we go through and we look at any of the sciences, all of them integrate, and the foundation for all of those is physics. So looking at physics and then looking at how your body's responses are, no different than the pupillary dilation and constriction that you see of your eyes when you go into dark and come into light. That's an involuntary reflex. So we want to play a part and actually evaluate how the body works and what these reflex systems are. So I utilize this in my work. So we're really looking at information medicine. We want to see what the information is there. Not that traditional care doesn't do that, because they run blood tests and they run MRIs and CAT scans and CTs. But as we talk, I'm going to tell you why this is special, because we go much, much deeper than what those other techniques and diagnostics can provide for you. The third one is precision disease causation. What I mean by that is when we look at digital forensics, if you're going to evaluate and somebody passes away and they do an autopsy, they're going to get a biopsy of that tissue. They're going to look in there. They're going to put it underneath a microscope, and they're going to look at the visual aspects of that. Well, we also utilize digital forensics in the work that I do for my clients. And we look for key toxins. We look for electromagnetic fields and how that's affecting the body. We look for these infections, bacteria, virus, parasites, yeast, mold, bacteria, heavy metals, and mercury, and so forth. So we utilize each of these three paradigms. So going back to electromagnetic fields and how our Earth has an ecosystem, our body also has an ecosystem, and all matter, everything you see, touch, feel, or taste in this world is made, and it has a frequency. All matter on Earth has a frequency. So it's from an atomic structure standpoint, everything is in constant motion. It's vibrating at a frequency, it's spinning and rotating, and everything in the universe does this. All organisms are made of atoms and molecules. And this means that virtually everything on Earth has a radiating energy to it, and it's got a vibration to it. So every living thing on Earth vibrates and it rotates, and it has a frequency to it. So to get that concept is very, very important, because when we look at frequencies, if you're looking at your microwave, you don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't feel it when it's doing that, but you take your food out and it's hot. Your cell phone rings, you can't see that signal, you can't feel that signal, you can't touch it, but your phone rings. That's a signal. And we have got radio waves, CT scans, MRIs, CAT scans. Those are our frequencies. So when we look at all matter on Earth, it has a frequency to it. So on this diagram, you're going to see that the brain, the spinal cord, the thyroid, the lungs, the liver, in addition to those compounds, those toxicities that I talked to you about, they all have a frequency. I hope this is making sense to you, because this is very, very important. Let's go to the next slide. Every organ of the body has a frequency, like I mentioned to you. So we look at the thyroid, the parathyroid, those glands will radiate, and they have a frequency of vibration of 62 to 68 megahertz or megahertz. And when we look at the lungs and the liver, we're looking at that 58 to 65, 55 to 60 range. When we look at the colon, 58 to 63. So you get the idea. So BioResidence testing, when we evaluate a client, what happens with that client is you're going to be laying on a bed, and we actually have you hold a metal rod. That rod is connected to a diagnostic plate. So that diagnostic plate is going to be in front of me. And as we do that, I'm going to put different types of matter on that while you're connected to that plate. There's a way that we evaluate through our proprietary types of techniques and our therapeutics that we utilize, where we're going to evaluate a stress response, just like that pupil constricting and dilating, just like that MRI CAT scan utilizes. We're going to use that frequency. We're going to look at your body and how you react to these substances. And as we go through that, we're going to find out what parasite, what yeast, what mold, what bacteria, what heavy metal is affecting what organ, and we're going to find out the specific strength of what is needed to help you. And we're going to find out exactly what organs need to be supported. So as we go through this, this is a very, very safe and comfortable procedure. So Advanced Cellular Health Recovery, proprietary diagnostic and therapeutic shines in a specific way, and that is in identifying key toxins that are causing your underlying problems to your condition. Remediating and neutralizing these with these toxins and these parasites, yeast, mold, bacteria, and so forth with our causative homeopathic remedies. And that's what we're going to help you with. Is at the end, we find out, and people will get anywhere from 10 to 20 different remedies based off of their condition. And we have to look at things in a way that we look at a layered effect, because people don't just get one condition and all of a sudden the condition is over with. When we look at Lyme disease, Lyme doesn't exist by itself. It exists when we have heavy metals and we have molds and fungus, and everything works in concert. So there's different layers. And as we peel back those layers for these conditions, we're going to see that those underlying findings that we have during the examination are going to start to fall off the list. And as we see them fall off the list, people get healthier and healthier. So it doesn't matter if you've got Lyme disease, if you or a loved one is suffering from autism, heart disease, autoimmune disease, neurological problems, chronic infections, chronic conditions. We all have the same parts. We're all affected, and we all integrate with the same world environment, the same ecosystem, the same environment. But our internal environments are all different. And what I mean by that is we've all had different lifestyles. We've eaten different foods. We've been to different parts of the country. We've used different products. We've had different vaccinations. We've had different medications put in our systems. So there is no one size fits all. Everybody is unique. One cancer patient isn't like the next cancer patient. One autism child is not like the next autism child. Every chronic infection of the intestines is not the same. We've got comorbidities, so to speak, underlying terrain to our systems that have to be put in balance. So if you or a loved one is suffering from a chronic condition, and you've gone through the allopathic model, you've gone through the alternative care model, and you just seem to not make any progress in your condition, things aren't resolving. You're not seeing things improve to give you the high quality of life that each and every one of you deserve. I think it's important for you to click the link up above, or else call us on at our office directly at 714-730-5833. Be more than happy to do a introductory call, talk to you about your condition, and help you get to the root cause of your condition so that you can live the quality, vitalistic life that you deserve. My name is Dr. Michael Corey. It's been my pleasure being here with you today.